Hi class, let's take a few minutes and chat today. I'm so sorry this video wasn't posted earlier in the week. I have been working on some JASP stuff for you and hopefully it will be available soon. We'll talk a little bit about this. Good news is there's not a lot really due this week. You do have that lit review. It is due to your peer review groups, and so you can start reviewing one another's papers. If you are not sure what peer review group you are in, it is posted to last week's announcements. So please make sure that you go ahead and check that. I believe it's last week's announcements. Make sure you check that so you know which group you're in. And remember that you need to review 2 papers and that your paper should be reviewed by 2 other people. So if you are in a group of 3, you need to make sure that you arrange it so every paper is reviewed twice, group of 4, etc. Just so you know, we don't want to review one person's paper 3 times. No, please don't do that. Make sure that when you're doing this, that you never review your own paper. You've read your paper, you've reviewed your paper. You need someone else to review it. You need to review someone else's paper. So just to be clear on that, you will need to submit your comments on other people's lit reviews no later than November 9th. So you do have a little bit of time to get that done. The other thing that's due this week is the IRB application. That is due on Saturday evening. If you have a grade for your pre-IRB application assignment, then you have my permission to move forward with the IRB assignment. Every single group should have a grade for the IRB assignment. I see your grade and I learned, so my assumption is that you are in Canvas. So I assume that you can see your grade as well. So if you haven't completed that IRB application, please go ahead and do so as soon as possible. Once you receive confirmation from the IRB that your study has been approved, then you are welcome to send your data out so you can start collecting data. Remember, we talked about this, I believe, in every person's method section, but if you were not one of the people that received the lovely feedback on this, let me tell you here. You will receive a vast majority of the data that you collect within the first 72 hours that your survey is opened. So choose a time when you can collect data. It's on the computer, so you can be sleeping and collect data. But within the first 72 hours of your post going out, of your email going out, whatever, you'll receive a vast majority of your data. In actuality, it's really in the first 12 hours that you'll receive most of that data, and it will trickle in over the first 72 hours. Then wait for it halfway through your data collection period, which I highly recommend be 7 to 10 days, preferably 7 to put yourself out of your misery quicker. You need to send a follow-up email or make a reminder post, and then you'll see a sharp uptick in the number of responses you receive, and then it's going to fall off again really quickly. You probably will not collect any more results after 7 to 10 days, so there is not really a purpose in leaving that survey open for that period of time. Sometimes you will collect additional responses, but often there are monetary incentives involved, points to students, things like that. If you're not doing any of those things, you're just relying on the generosity of people to fill out your surveys. So cut it off after 7 to 10 days. Put yourself out of your misery. All right. I understand that there is a missing video in the week 7 prepare data management section. I received an email about that. I guess the video has not yet been recorded. If I understood correctly, it has not yet been recorded. So yes, it will not be included, but all of the information that you need is included in the reading. So the video was just to help reinforce it, and it's cool. You don't have to watch a video now. Now you just get to read instead of reading and watching a video. So congratulations, you just got 15 minutes of your life back. All right. I've also received a lot of questions about where the literature review fits within your larger research report at the end of the semester. Well, I've been thinking of a way to talk about this, and it came to me this morning. I am currently reading a book titled Polio, and I started a couple days ago, and I'm in that first section where we're not really talking about polio yet. Right now, they're talking about John D. Rockefeller and the history of clinical research in the United States and virology during the early 20th century, and all these things that seem really unrelated to the topic of polio. Yeah, it's interesting that John D. Rockefeller was a self-made man and he donated all of this money to clinical research, but what does that have to do with polio? Well, it has a lot to do with polio. The person who kind of led the team to develop polio and was one of the mentors to some of the developers of the polio vaccine worked for him in his lab. So without that lab, without John D. Rockefeller's donation, we wouldn't have the polio vaccine. But until you get to the end, it doesn't make a lot of sense. The lit review is the same as those introductory chapters in a book. Those introductory chapters give you all of that background information you need to know to understand the story, to understand whatever comes next in the book. That is the same as your lit review. Your lit review may seem to include a lot of topics that you're like, what? I'm understanding diabetes. Why do I need to understand family norms and fitness programs in elementary school and all of these things that seem somewhat unrelated? Well, they're going to become related once you talk about our research project is doing this. Once you state your research question and then once you move into your results, all of those disparate things start to come together, just like all this information in this book I'm reading. How is John D. Rockefeller related? How is scientific research related? How is sanitation related? Well, it's all comes to polio. This is how they started to understand how polio works, and it's not until they can understand how polio works that they can come up with a vaccine for it. The same is true with your paper. The lit review is providing the background information. That is why it's called the introduction in the final research report. The introduction is long. Think about the introduction in books. They're long. If you've ever read Harry Potter, it seems a little excessive that every single book she talks about, he's the boy who lived. This is what happens. This is what happens. Well, why does she talk about that? Because you need to know who Harry Potter is before you can move on to understanding what is happening to him in this year of Hogwarts. Can you tell my kids are reading Harry Potter? They are. All right, that is how the introduction works. That is why when you see introduction in that final APA template, it's confusing because why is the introduction so long? We haven't done anything to do with introduction. Actually, you have. Actually, the introduction and the literature review should be used synonymously. I'm so sorry that it is not. That is confusing. Okay. So now we understand the lit review and how it fits into the final research report. There's a really good chance that you're going to revise some of that lit review after you go through this process. You're going to shorten it down, take out some things that are interesting but maybe really too far off in left field. But that's how it fits in. Now, once the lit review is done, once you've done the peer review process, once you've read yours out loud, you are going to move on to something else that is a little tiny bit in a different direction. Actually, it's a lot in a tiny different direction. We are going to start talking about JASP. If you've never used JASP, then you are like everyone. Then you are like everyone in this class, unless I don't know why you would have used JASP before. I actually hadn't used JASP myself until a couple of weeks ago. JASP is a statistical analysis software that we are going to be using for this class. You are probably more familiar with Excel or in some cases, I guess, Google Sheets or SPSS. Well, here's the deal. In order to use SPSS, you either have to buy the program or you have to go through this really horrible process to be able to access the campus version of the program. That's not good. Nobody likes accessing it. Students were more confused by how to access SPSS than they were about using SPSS. So that's over. For the last few semesters, we've used Excel in this class. You probably will use Excel more in your life as a public health professional than you will use JASP, but that's okay. JASP is a free software, so you can download it. You can use it in your future jobs. It's a free software, but it has much the same capabilities as SPSS, though it is somewhat less user-friendly. And there are a lot of tutorials available for it online. So you are going to have a practice assignment, except it's not turned in, and then you're going to have a JASP paper, and then you're going to analyze your data in JASP, unless you choose to analyze it in something else that you feel more comfortable with. JASP can do a lot of really cool things. So I recommend that you hop on over to week 9 really quick, download JASP this week. Just download it to make sure that you can download it, because we may have some troubleshooting issues with that. It is available for Chromebooks, Surface Pros, and iPads as well. You'll just need to download an extension to do that. So I highly recommend that you download JASP this week. You don't need to use it, just need to download it, make sure you can open it. Perfect, that's all you need to do. If you are one of those people that is really nervous about stats, you don't need to be really nervous about JASP. You don't need to be super nervous about the data analysis for this class. This is really surface level. Whatever you learned in stats or didn't learn in stats or took in stats 25 years ago, you are good to go. You're good to go. Like I said, this is just really surface level, and the directions in JASP are fairly straightforward. I'll also send out a video where I go through a majority of the assignment and show you how to do it. So if you wanted to have it open on one screen and do it yourself on the other, you would be able to see that. You would also be able to see some of the answers column populated, so you can know whether or not you are doing it correctly. But it's going to be a couple days before those videos come out, because I don't want you to be too focused on how do I do JASP and not focus on the lit review, because the lit review is significantly more important than grasping JASP. It so is. It so is. So please take time to review your peers' papers. Take time to review your own paper. Make edits as needed. I hope that you all have a happy, safe, delicious Halloween.